and I say that out loud so that I remember I'm recording. But thank you all so much again for joining us this afternoon for our Ready, Set, Onboard workshop, where we're going to be covering effective onboarding strategies for student employment supervisors. Hopefully, this workshop is timely. We are unfortunately getting closer and closer to the end of the summer, but on a positive note, we get to see all of our students back on campus, which is always exciting. A new class coming in, which I love to see. And you might be in the process of hiring new students to join your team. And so this workshop is really designed to help you know where to start when it comes to onboarding. So we'll share some best practices and strategies from the Work Plus team. But I also want to open it up to anyone who's in attendance today to share any best practices or strategies that you all might have. But also feel free to ask questions. Each of our teams or departments look a little bit different. And so what works for one team might work a little bit differently for another. And so I really want to spend some time towards the end of the presentation opening it up to all of you to ask any questions that you have or share best practices, strategies, resources, tools that you've developed to hopefully support other supervisors in onboarding their new student employees to the team. So going to start off with some demographics of our working learners here at ASU and nationally. We'll talk a little bit about what it means to prepare for onboarding, what the actual onboarding process should involve, some different points that you need to touch on, hopefully, throughout bringing new students onto your team. And then, like I mentioned, we'll transition into more best practices and conversations around resources that exist. So if any of you have ever been to a Work Plus presentation in the past or gone through foundations recently, some of these statistics and data might look familiar to you, but we always like to highlight them during any of our workshops or presentations to kind of set the stage and help the audience understand, what do our student employees look like across ASU? So what we know about our working learners, student employees here at ASU, is that oftentimes these are students that must work while attending school. So for one reason or another, they have decided to work while pursuing their degree. Maybe they are paying for their tuition. Maybe they need to pay for rent. Maybe they're supporting themselves or their family. They, again, have decided to get a on-campus job to help support them on top of, again, pursuing their degree, sometimes in full workloads. So they're typically also balancing those resources of time, energy across those different commitments that they have as a student, working towards their degree and working towards a career that they want to pursue after they graduate. We also know that for some students, this might be their first job ever. So they might not have ever worked in a professional office setting or worked anywhere at all while earning a paycheck. And so we really have an opportunity with student employees to kind of set the stage and help them understand what they should expect from a future employer or what they can expect from working in a professional setting. What are the sort of the standards and expectations around being an employee in a office setting that they can hopefully carry with them beyond their degree. So on the left side of the screen, we have some statistics from a study that was done by Georgetown University, and they found that 43% of working learners are actually coming from low-income households. And then of these working learners, 18% are Black, 58% are female, 25% are Latinx, and 47% are actually first generation. So knowing the demographics of our students and where they may be coming from is so important for how we, again, set the scene and kind of guide them throughout their student employment journey. Now, looking at ASU specifically, we know that at least 7 out of 10 of our undergraduate students are actually working at least one job during their undergraduate career. Additionally, ASU employs upwards of 10,000 students on an annual basis. Now, in the grand scheme of ASU, with 150,000 students across all of our different locations, this seems like a small number, but it's really a large enough population that we have an opportunity to be very intentional with regarding how we prepare them to leave ASU and enter the workforce. So we have the potential and opportunity with something like student employment, and student employment really is the ideal platform for elevating a student's career readiness, helping them with their professional development throughout that experience. This is a journey map that kind of outlines what does a typical student employment journey look like. It illustrates the process a student worker experiences, and then throughout the way, Work Plus, we offer resources for both you all as supervisors as well as our students to help them in each stage of the student employment journey. The other thing that's not specifically outlined on this journey map is really the influence that you all as supervisors have on each stage of this journey. And each stage builds upon each other. It sets the tone for what they can expect from their student employment experience. So in this onboarding workshop, our students have gone through the application process, they've interviewed, they've been offered the job. Now it's their first day. This again is potentially their first introduction to student employment or a professional job. So we have an opportunity through the onboarding process to really set students up for success throughout the student employment experience, set those expectations of what they can expect from you as a supervisor, what they can expect to learn, or the skills that they can hopefully begin to develop throughout their student employment journey. Obviously, there's some logistical aspects of onboarding, like paperwork, introducing them to the department, other training. But really, this is kind of that first stage of the rest of their experience, and how we properly, or if we're properly onboarding our student employees, then we're helping influence each of those other stages of that journey. So going into goal setting, helping them understand their contributions to the department or the team as a whole, and maybe what they want to learn or develop throughout their time with your team. Professional development. During this time, students are hopefully elevating their job responsibility and taking on more tasks based on performance. And then eventually, always bittersweet, our student employees may be graduating or moving on to other opportunities, but we have an opportunity to celebrate their contributions and recognize them for the hard work that they've done, so that, again, they know what they can expect from a future career, what they should be looking for when they are applying for jobs, that culture and kind of the environment that they want to be a part of in the future. So thinking about some steps for effective onboarding, kind of want to outline very general, broad steps for the onboarding process to keep in mind as you are bringing on new students to your team. So try and get them to bond with the department or the team. This is their first day. This, again, might be intimidating. It could be their first job. Introduce them to the people around the office that they might be interacting with or that they might see on a regular basis. Try to understand, what their interests are or how they like to be recognized. We have resources and tools to support you in kind of introducing that. What do you like to do outside of work? How can I get to know you beyond just the fact that you're being hired for a particular position or fulfilling certain responsibilities as a part of your role? Help students become confident. So helping employees become confident and self-sufficient more quickly as a part of the onboarding process is going to ultimately reduce the amount of time they need to become productive team members. So what sort of training do they need? What do they need to know about your team or the work that you do so that they can kind of understand and confidently articulate what their contribution is, what you maybe do as the supervisor for the larger team, so that they understand where they fit into that process and that team dynamic. Help students feel supported and better connected. So structured onboarding plans are going to help employees feel more supported, better connected to your department's overall mission, which can then drive better employee engagement. So creating like a sense of affinity or community to your workplace. Again, I'll probably say this a few times throughout today, but helping them understand what their contribution is to the greater work or goals of your team, going to help them feel connected. So sometimes we might give students menial or tedious tasks, but we know that they're helping with a larger goal, or if we're looking at it bigger picture, helping them understand what their contribution is supporting the team to work towards. Try to make a good first impression. So first impressions are everything. They're important. Onboarding affects employees' perceptions of the department, and having that effective onboarding strategy is going to help to create a better impression. It's going to help employees better understand their role and expectation, and it's going to help them feel comfortable and supported, both in their first week or first day with the team, and then long term as they continue to work with the team. When you're onboarding, try to streamline the process. It's going to ensure that employees aren't wasting time on tedious or frustrating tasks that aren't helping them or the team. So something that we have an opportunity to coach and support students on as they are developing as professionals is efficiency. And so giving them kind of the tips and tricks of your office and your team that will help them from day one and that they'll continue to use throughout their time with you. Increase in student staff retention. So if we're onboarding effectively, it can hopefully lead to an increase in student staff retention, saving time and resources for you and your team. Again, each stage of that student employment journey sets the tone for the next. It builds upon each other. And so starting off strong with an effective onboarding process will hopefully allow your students to, again, understand their contribution, their role within the team, and hopefully keep them there long term. If you are supporting their growth and their development throughout that experience. I have had students who have been with our team from the time that they are sophomores up until the time that they are seniors and they're graduating, kind of giving them the opportunity to develop throughout that experience. And it really starts with day one, with their first week with the team and how we are onboarding them. Effective onboarding is going to allow new employees to become self-sufficient and leads to fewer mistakes in their work, which creates less of a burden for others on your team. I think that something we know when it comes to onboarding or any part of the hiring process with student employees is that it is a time-consuming process for us as supervisors. It's something that I struggle with sometimes to kind of balance my day-to-day tasks and actually bringing on new people to the team and making sure that I'm giving them the time and attention to develop and train them for the role that they've been hired for. But ultimately, when I set that time aside and I make sure that I am, dedicating attention to their training and onboarding within the first week, within the first month, setting that expectation that they can come to me if they have questions, it's ultimately helping me in the long term. I'm able to confidently delegate tasks to them. I know that they will come to me if there are areas that they need further clarification, and they are getting to a point where they're becoming more self-sufficient. And then finally, last important piece of an effective onboarding process is it's going to be a great opportunity to identify and address any skills gaps that your students might be coming into the role with, so that you can identify and provide training and development opportunities as they need, and ensuring that those mandatory trainings are getting completed in a timely manner. So as you are preparing to onboard students, maybe for this new academic year, there's some pre-onboarding work that happens before they actually start, as I'm sure many of you know. And it really starts again when we're looking at that application stage and that interview stage. So Starting off with job descriptions that accurately describe and portray the full scope of the work that you want students to be doing, outlining the kind of expectations or experience and knowledge that you're hoping students will be coming into the role with, and also aligning your interview questions to match with what is outlined in the job description so that you can get a better understanding of if those students you potentially want to bring onto your team do have the skills and experience that you're looking for. I also strongly recommend in your job descriptions outlining the skills that students will develop through the job. So not only are we looking for something for the student to bring to the role or to the team, but also helping students understand, again, that bigger picture. What are they ultimately contributing to, and what can they expect to learn throughout their student employment experience? There are some obviously administrative tasks as a part of pre-onboarding. You should be working with your business department, your HR team, to ensure that all of the necessary paperwork, offer letters have been signed, a start date has been decided upon and agreed upon both between you and the student, as well as you and your human resources team. And also making sure that your students are prepared prior to the first day of what they can kind of expect in terms of additional paperwork that might be needed, maybe like I-9 or tax-related paperwork. And then next part of that pre-onboarding preparation is communication. Super important leading up to the first day, being sure to maintain open and clear communication with your new hire prior to that start date. If they haven't been to your office before, making sure that you are sending them the office location as well as maybe some directions for how to find your space. I give my students a building location and then I'm saying, third floor, first door on your left, whatever it might be, so that they are not hopefully stressed out and they feel comfortable finding the space ahead of time. I've even had students who have asked to just come and see where the space is before their start date. So maybe they start on a Monday and on Friday, they're like, do you mind if I stop by just so I know where I'm going? Ahead of time, being sure to communicate and talk with them leading up to that process is super helpful for them. Take some of those nerves off of the student's plate leading up to their first day. Also making sure that you're communicating things like parking, where should you park, or dress code. So if there's a specific dress code that your office has, what should students be wearing on their first day? Is there anything that they need to bring with them for their first day? I always end up telling my students, bring a water bottle and any snacks that you might want to help you throughout the day, but maybe there are more so administrative things that you need or paperwork that you need from the student leading up. And then finally, setting up all that necessary equipment, technology, and ensuring that it's fully functional and ready to use. You can also use this time to provide any department swag or polos. Maybe your students are, student or parent or faculty facing, and there is certain department attire that they need to wear for specific meetings or events, giving them that ahead of time. Helping them feel recognized and appreciated from the moment that they arrive. So you can print out a little sign and leave it on their workstation, welcoming them to the team, or leaving out, some treats or whatever else you might have that you're able to provide to the student. And it's a good opportunity as well to maybe leave a note from you as the supervisor, just welcoming them to the team. So kind of breaking it down from day one to the first week and then ongoing as a part of onboarding, things to keep in mind. From day one, it is always good to start with that warm welcome, giving your students a tour of your office, workspaces for the student, and around your office. Maybe where is the copy room? Maybe where is the break room? Things that they would need throughout their day that align with, just them being comfortable within the team, but also areas that they need to be aware of that affect maybe their job or responsibilities. Introducing them to important individuals that they may be working with. Where are conference rooms? Where are bathrooms? All of that. Introducing your working learner to everyone that they will be working with. So their peers, other student employees, or other people who might be delegating tasks or responsibilities. But also that context is important on day one as well. So yes, this is who this is, and this is who you might be working with, but why? Where do our jobs overlap? Where do we kind of collaborate in certain areas so that they have an understanding of who this person is and how they will, again, be contributing to the larger goals and bigger picture of the team. Also on day one, again, kind of thinking more logistical, going over ASU and your department's missions and values, setting the tone and expectations of your department's culture, and then beginning the onboarding process with the new hire, walking them through workday, having a place where you have a checklist of all the required trainings that they need to complete, not necessarily on day one, but within that first week, so that they have taken care of all of the ASU required trainings. Day one is also a good time to start talking about their schedule, overview of tasks that they'll be supporting with, how they'll be working with your team. And like I mentioned before, this is a great opportunity to already have their workspace set up and decorated, providing them that swag that they need from day one. Within the first week, try and have them complete all of their necessary ASU training. It's easy for those to kind of, get pushed down the list of tasks potentially, but they are still needed. We use a platform called Monday. It is essentially a project management tool. And we create a Monday board or a checklist that lists all the required ASU trainings, as well as our department-specific trainings that need to be completed. I set a due date, usually within their first week. Obviously, that might fluctuate based off of their schedule. Maybe they're not, working too much their first week, but having something that they can refer to with specific deadlines for when they need to complete things. Links to the trainings are super helpful as a part of that checklist as well. And then also making sure that they're completing, again, that tax paperwork, their direct deposit, all within the first week. I also, within the first week, like to have my new students fill out something called a recognition worksheet, which we're happy to share the link to throughout today's presentation. But it's a way for me to capture how they like to be recognized, what their career goals are, some of their favorite things. So what's their favorite drink, their favorite color, restaurants, candy that they like. And then I kind of keep that on hand for opportunities throughout that student employment experience to where I can maybe during student employment appreciation week, I leave their favorite treat on their desk, or I know when their birthday is, and so I can surprise them with a card or, their favorite drink. I know their favorite colors, things like that, that I can refer back to and incorporate into the recognition that I'm providing to my students. Also throughout the first week, because you can't cover everything in day one in terms of expectations, tasks, and responsibilities. I'm sure that you can do it all in one day, but to help students not feel overwhelmed and ensuring that they are not, missing out on information, that they're retaining the information that you want them to retain, spacing that out throughout the first week, going over tasks, responsibilities, having them participate in meetings or training specific to the work that they will be supporting with. I also like to, within the first week, always encourage my students to take a professional headshot. Again, this is not sometimes their first job, not only on campus, but just in general. And so we'll have them go to the ASU Career Services photo booth that on the Tempe campus is located in the MU. I know that there's also a photo booth in at the West campus as well that students can use. And then at Poly and downtown, we will occasionally downtown at the Post. Great. Thank you, Angelina. So there are opportunities for them to take a professional headshot, add that to their LinkedIn profile. Maybe they also within the first week post that they've started a new job on LinkedIn with your department, and you can celebrate and connect with them as a part of that new experience. And then within the first month and ongoing, it's really important for the onboarding process to be intentional and check in with your new working learners to ensure that they understand your department, their roles and responsibilities. Also making sure that they have all of the access that they need to any tools or resources that they need to be successful in the position. Like I mentioned, that first day, that first week, it can be overwhelming for students. Personally, I learn by actually doing. And so maybe in that first week, I'm being told and trained through talking, but I don't actually pick it up until I start doing it. I know many of my students are the same way. So continuing to check in with them, making sure they have the opportunity with some guidance to take on those tasks that you eventually want them to be self-sufficient in running, opening up that opportunity for them to ask questions, being available to them to offer ongoing support and guidance throughout their position and what they'll be responsible for within their role. So just some best practices. These are, again, very general, and recognize that all of our teams are different. The number of working learners that we're each onboarding is going to vary. Some of us might be only bringing on one. Some of us are bringing on 10, 15 plus. And so overarching best practices to ensure that your onboarding process is successful and helpful to the new students that you are bringing on. So starting with structure, ensuring that they receive that consistent, comprehensive training and support is going to help them become that productive member of your team, feeling welcomed, creating that affinity and that integration into your team. Engagement, having your other working learners or professional staff support you in the onboarding process, scheduling meetings for them to meet some of those people that they'll be working with more closely among your team. It's also going to help you, again, create that support and emphasize, a collaborative environment, encouraging them to build relationships and connections. Maybe it's networking with other professional staff, but maybe it's also just, this is somebody else that you can go to if you have questions if I'm not available. It's not just me who can support you. We as a team are wanting to support you and see you be successful. Focusing also on development. So being intentional to include time for your staff to have continuous development, whether that's ongoing training specific to their role, career and professional development geared towards the industry that they're interested in pursuing once they graduate ASU. But also, if you're having regular check-ins or team meetings, not focusing entirely on their particular role with the team or task that they're working on, also making sure to incorporate more general opportunities for professional development and career development. And then finally, celebration. So recognizing and celebrating your working learners is very important. It's going to help to boost their morale. It's going to reinforce those positive behaviors and foster a sense of value and motivation. Including this in your onboarding process, or even just starting off with something like a recognition worksheet or some other way that you kind of learn a little bit more about the student beyond, what are they pursuing here at ASU and what role have they been hired for, is really going to set a positive tone. It's going to show your new hires that their contributions are going to be accepted and encouraged, and creating a culture of appreciation from the start among your team. We will be sharing that recognition worksheet. If you're interested, we'll also show a couple of different resources on the Supervisor Hub that can help not only the onboarding process for supervisors, but also, long-term in terms of goal setting, having feedback and evaluation processes with your students to help them develop and understand, how the skills that they're developing within their student employment are going to connect to their career post-graduation. So this is just a quick overview of some of the resources that you all have access to on the Work Plus Supervisor Hub. And they are organized in a way to kind of meet those different stages of the student employment journey. So from hiring, using AI to help you be more efficient with like job descriptions or interviewing, best practices for updating those job descriptions. For onboarding and offboarding working learners, so tips for how to welcome your working learner. We have a broad onboarding checklist. I will also share a great resource that we just developed if you wanted to create something within like a Canvas course. And I also have a colleague who's going to share a little bit more about what he's developed through Canvas. And then supporting working learners throughout that experience, the recognition worksheet, SMART goals, public ways to display what your working learners are doing, and then just supervising and developing working learners. So project development, how to have feedback or evaluation conversations with your students. With that, I am going to pause here. I'm going to throw some of those links into the chat that I mentioned. Yes, Kalani, I will absolutely do that. But I want to introduce my colleague, Jack, who is joining us from admissions. Jack is a really great partner of WorkPlus, and he has developed a lot of his own onboarding or resources and tools to help support his students as they're entering their new position, but also to help support him as a supervisor of student employees. And so he's going to share a little bit about what he's created, and then we'll open it up for any other best practices or questions from the rest of the folks in attendance today.
Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for your time today. I went ahead and pulled up some tabs here, so I'll go ahead and screen share my site as well. So I work for admission services. Like Amanda said, I'm the operations manager, which means I support our recruitment teams, applicant services teams, and as well as our technology and data solutions teams. So across that area, we have well over 300 or 400 student workers in admission services as a whole. That could be from the Devil's Advocate tour guides to our peer admission representatives who help answer admission-related questions, all the way to our applicant services verifiers who are reviewing every transcript that comes in manually from every student across the world. So we have lots of student workers, and so it became a point where our training needed to be consistent. So a couple of years ago, I developed this Canvas course, and then over the last 2 or 3 years have been really adding to it anytime we find that there's a gap in training, like Amanda was mentioning before, as well as some of our standardizations with Workday, things like that. So what I want to show is that we kind of have a Canvas course set up where it's going to be a training, but it also can be used for the future with reference links. So they can go back and find helpful links that they may have. I remember seeing that in training, but I can't remember where. We have it all linked on separate pages for them too. So what I'll show first is our modules. So each of these modules have assignments inside of them. So one of the first things we have is the technology setup. So getting them subscribed to the network, Slack, Outlook, Zoom, the printers, and then even like their Isaac access for their badges. So things that we kind of do automatically but may not think to have documented anywhere. We've gone through and documented how to do everything. And part of the setup for this was that once I had it all set up, I said, okay, but I can't manage going back in and grading all of this or paying attention to all of the different access requests. So you'll see in here, all of the assignments are auto-graded with a complete or incomplete grade. So they're required to upload a screenshot of completion for each of the assignments. And there also are the quizzes that we put in for knowledge checks throughout. But that allows the supervisor from any of our teams across our department to utilize this one resource in order to kind of onboard their employees. So some of the ones I wanted to show an example of, and so again, it goes into time, pay, and professional standards. So you have things like the I-9 that Amanda was mentioning, time off, time in, work attire, and you may see down here we have 3 different work attires for our different kind of areas. What's nice is that within Canvas, you can actually set up sections and have different employees go through different pieces of the onboarding puzzle, but you don't have to have multiple Canvas shells. So you have one Canvas shell and you just make each assignment required for each different type of role. And so you can see here with 163, this is the number of student workers who have started since the Canvas module was launched for our whole department this last January. So there's lots of other student workers who were already here before, but this is how many have come in through January. So 163 students would not be the most fun to onboard manually. So putting them through this kind of curriculum is super helpful. I don't know if any of your departments have access requests that you then have to wait a week, 2 weeks for to be granted. This is full of content that we've provided in here that is going to give them more information about ASU, their role, and even professional development experience with LinkedIn Learning through the actual onboarding. So from the jump, they're getting that professional development experience built in. So what I will show too is down here. One of the examples of the LinkedIn learnings where we put them in is the customer service trainings. So each of these link out to a specific LinkedIn Learning course. So it prompts them to go ahead and do that on their LinkedIn Learning. So they're getting curriculum for it, but it also is teaching them customer service basics, especially when probably 80 to 90% of our employees are international students. There are different standards depending on which country you're coming from or that you're going to. So if students are not from the US, these ones also kind of focus in on the US customer service feature. When I was talking about some of those quizzes, we aren't trying to trick any students. It's the whole purpose is for them to learn. So we actually include the resource that they're going to need at the top of every quiz. So they can simply open this up in another tab and they can go back and forth, left and right, left and right. But what we've decided to do, instead of making the questions what does the A in ASU stand for, where there is a right or wrong answer? We do scenario-based questions. So all of our curriculum is based off of different situations. So I'll give this as a first example. You're working a morning shift at the front desk at the admissions office where you'll be greeting a campus visitor. What's the most appropriate outfit? So there is a right and wrong answer, but you'll notice that some of these are a little bit vague. So, instead of it saying, what can you not do? We're kind of empowering them like, what should you do? So that way they can start making these choices on their own. And this is a very easy example with the dress code, but we do it further on with our admission process too. So quizzes is another example. Another portion we have are our assignments. So there's a couple of these throughout. So this one's just called Getting to Know the ASU website. So they actually need to come up with a document where they're going to type responses out. They'll include useful links and screenshots, take notes. And so what they'll actually do at the end of this is that they'll have a check-in conversation with their supervisor. So in essence, they're creating their own reference doc to build off of throughout their time in the role. So they're basically creating the foundation for what they can then go back to and use to take notes, because we find students love to take notes, at least for our department, in their own Slack. They're basically just slacking themselves a bunch of notes, but it sometimes is hard to find documents and things. So having them create their own reference sheet to go back to is super helpful. So we give them prompts of what they need to find, but we don't give them any guidance of where on the ASU website they're going to find this information. So it does end up taking them some time to put together. What's nice is you can track the status of your student workers. So right now, this is actually a full-time staff member who's going through the process right now. So I can see what they've completed, which assignments they still need to complete. And you can kind of take a look at a high level. So that way it gives the supervisor a lot of review into, or a lot of vision into where their employee is at. And then again, like I mentioned, we have different sections. So Devil's Advocates has 130 users, but their requirements are like 25 of the modules versus the over 200 total assignments and pages that are in here, because they're doing tours. They don't need the access to all the systems. They don't need access to customer service portions of topics. So they're able to be reassigned if they needed to, or they got a different role, but there's different assignments for each different type of user. And then the very last thing is we have our roster, which actually tracks the amount of time it's spent for the people to complete it. So this is one of our newest student workers. They've completed this curriculum in 17 hours and 37 minutes from start to bottom. So it's perfect for a first week. It gets them from day one through their final, maybe Friday of their first week. They have all access requests submitted. They have everything that they need for our minimum satisfaction completed, and it's spent enough time that the next week when they start, they should have the access that they requested that first day by the time they start their second week. So that's everything I wanted to share here on this training module, Amanda. Free if anyone has questions or wants to share their experience too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jack. And this came entirely out of the course that Jack spent a lot of time creating, but we have created a version of the course that Jack developed, a bit more general, that we are happy to share with any supervisors who are interested in creating a similar Canvas onboarding course for their new student employees. This is, again, general. You can customize this. If anyone is interested in getting access to this course as a teacher, to where you can make a copy of the modules and create your own course, I'm happy to do so. You can respond in the chat. I will also send a follow-up email to all of our attendees with the recording and the slides from today's presentation as well. But another resource, and I will throw the link to the resource I'm going to talk about.
Amanda, I realized there was one more tab that wasn't Canvas, but it was the organization. Can I share it real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. There was one more page I wanted to show y'all just for organization. This is, you can just do it in Google Sheets, but what I find really helpful is when you're building out your Canvas, put everything into a Google Sheet so it's searchable. So you can just Control F for whatever word you're looking for. If someone says, is this included in the training? Then you can search for it. So I just basically put everything in here first and then move it to Canvas. It makes it a lot easier to organize. So it's like, what's the assignment? What type is it? Who's going to be required to do it? The links that you need, because especially when we moved from PeopleSoft to Workday, it was so easy. All I had to do was search the beginning of that URL, and then I could find which links were going to be broken. And then you can even put your tables or your images in here too, if you have anything. So thank you, Amanda. Sorry for the sidetrack there.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for sharing more info on that. And then another resource that we have similar to the course that Jack created, we have created an outline that goes over general onboarding for student employees. So maybe you want to do something similar to what Jack has created, but you don't want to do it in Canvas. Maybe you have a different platform or system that you want to use. Maybe it's something like Monday or a different project management tool. This outlines different modules that are important to touch on with new students who are starting on your team. So breaks it down by modules, but again, you can organize this a different way. This is just a general tool or resource that you can use to help you develop your own unique onboarding process for your new student employees. Links to two-factor authentication, connecting to the ASU network, the mobile app, links to trainings, Slack, all of that is in this document as well. I shared the link in the chat. We are in the process of our site migration, so this is not currently linked on our website, but it will be linked on our website within the next couple of weeks here. And again, you also, if you would like a copy of just the general Canvas shell, similar to what Jack created, we are happy to share that with you. We'll add you as a teacher, and then you can make a copy of the course and kind of customize and add your own unique department trainings, things that you want to touch on as a part of the onboarding process. I do want to stop sharing and open it up for any questions that anyone might have regarding onboarding, but also would love to hear if there are other best practices, tips, and strategies that you might be willing to share with us all today. Does anyone have any additional questions, comments? I would also love to also plug that if there are resources that you would like developed to help further support you as supervisors of working learners, whether it be through the onboarding process or at any stage of that student employment journey, please let me know as a part of the Work Plus team. We want to do some of that heavy lifting for you and help create those resources for you. Also, if you have tools or resources that you've developed on your own, similar to what Jack shared, and you're willing to share those with us, we can make them a bit more general and broad to share with the larger student employment community, we would love to do that as well. But we recognize that, onboarding student employees, hiring student employees, like I mentioned earlier, is certainly a time-consuming process. And so anything that we can kind of do to help support you in that process, maybe help make it a little bit more efficient for you along the way, we would love to help you with and support you with. So I hope that you got some good resources and best practices and tips out of today's presentation. I will hang out if anyone does have any questions. And like I mentioned, we will be sure to share the recording and slide deck links with everyone who is in attendance. And I will also be adding you to that Canvas course as teachers so that you can make copies of the course for your own use. But thank you all so much, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.